Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my channel? Thank you so much. On the day of our engagement, I received a marriage certificate of my fiancée and her junior assistant. Looking at the two people in the photo, I calmly broke up with Ava. Ava's junior assistant called me with a choked voice, begging for my forgiveness. "Brother James, it's all my fault. I sent the photo to the wrong person. Please don't quarrel with Ava." On the other end of the phone, Ava hugged him and comforted him. "It's okay. He won't be angry. After 8 years of dating, he can't bear to leave me." I didn't respond. I just hung up the phone. I left the engagement ring behind and turned to leave. After hanging up, I silently packed my luggage and prepared to leave. Ava didn't come home all night. The next day, she came back disheveled and ordered me in her usual commanding tone, "Go make me a cup of honey water." I glanced at her, but ignored her and continued with what I was doing. When I didn't respond, Ava frowned and strode over. "Are you deaf, James?" She froze when she saw my packed luggage. Then her face instantly sank. "What do you mean? Are you really planning to break up?" I didn't even look at her and said flatly, "Is breaking up something to joke about?" Perhaps my attitude was too indifferent. Ava's gaze turned icy. She suddenly stepped forward and kicked over the suitcase in front of me, looking down at me. "Have you had enough of making a scene?" I looked at her and smiled sarcastically. "Me making a scene? You've already taken wedding photos with someone else. Why do you have to say such things to me?" Ava's expression became more impatient. "Haven't I explained it to you? It was just for fun. William was diagnosed with cancer, and he wants to give his parents an explanation before he dies. You know, he's been following me since graduation. He's not just my assistant, but also my friend. What's wrong with me helping him?" She glanced at me, her tone condescending. "At worst, we can take new wedding photos. Are you satisfied now?" I waved my hand, interrupting her ridiculous speech. "All right, there's no need to tell me this. You can discuss it with him." Ava's face turned cold again. "After all, you just have no compassion and don't trust me. In that case, I don't think we need to get married anymore." Her tone was threatening and warning, but I didn't care at all. "Fine." Ava was taken aback, her eyes full of disbelief. "Are you serious?" I didn't speak. I picked up my luggage and got up to leave. As I passed by Ava, she suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist, speaking ruthlessly. "Think carefully. If you leave me, you'll be nothing." I looked into her eyes, the woman I had loved for 7 years. At that moment, her eyes were only cold and disdainful. It would be a lie to say my heart didn't hurt. I took a deep breath, smiled, and gently pried her fingers off one by one. "I wish you both happiness." With that, I pulled my suitcase and left without looking back. Before I went out, I heard Ava's angry voice from behind. "James, if you leave, don't ever think about coming back. Let's see what kind of future you have. Soon-to-be son-in-law can have without me as son-in-law." I finally stopped and looked back, not because of reluctance or regret, just to see clearly how disgusting the face of the girl I had loved for 7 years was at that moment. As if venting her anger, Ava walked to the entrance, gave me a cold look, and slammed the door shut. The loud noise was enough to show her inner anger. At the entrance of the community, I met William. I didn't need to ask to know he had sent Ava back. I'm afraid he had been waiting there, hoping that Ava and I would quarrel so he could appear in time as the caring puppy. He rolled down the car window, looked at my luggage, and sneered. "Yo, isn't this General Manager James? What's wrong? Did Ava kick you out?" I gave him a cold look and disdainfully paid attention, but he leaned over playfully and blocked my way. "It's better to leave early. You old man are simply unworthy of her." I stopped, looked at his annoying expression, and smiled. "Yes, I'm not worthy. A parasite like you is a perfect match for her." William's face changed. I directly kicked him in the abdomen and left without looking back. There's no need to be polite to trash. At night, I found a hotel to stay in temporarily. Lying in bed, memories of these years flooded in unconsciously. Ava used to be my only one, my everything. Unfortunately, she was the high-ranking young lady of the Ava family, while I was just an ordinary bookworm. We met in college, but we didn't have much interaction. Like all the boys who liked her, I could only watch her from a distance. I followed in her footsteps every day, going to class, finishing class, and eating together. In the end, I even changed my major to her college just to see her more. Before today, I never regretted that decision because it was that decision that allowed me to develop a further relationship with Ava. Because of my excellent grades, I was chosen by Ava as her team partner. I remember I was so excited that I almost lost my words. Looking at her beautiful face, I stammered for a long time before uttering, "I do." Ava laughed softly, her eyes curved. "You sound like you're saying wedding vows." Everyone cheered, and I lowered my head, smiling awkwardly, feeling as flustered as a child who had done something wrong. But she didn't mind. Instead, she took the initiative to help me out of the awkward situation. "Stop joking, everyone. James is so excellent. I should be the one happy to be in a team with him." After that day, our relationship gradually warmed up. In the end, when I confessed to her, she agreed without hesitation. We spent beautiful college time together and were the model couple everyone envied. At that time, I had excellent grades. Just after graduation, I received many offers from international big companies. Even the professor suggested that I go abroad for further study. But for Ava, I turned them all down and was willing to start from the grassroots in her family's company. And she had several conflicts with her family to be with me, to give our relationship. She tried her best to resist under the pressure of her family. She held up a small world for our relationship. Sometimes I also can't figure out why Ava and I became like this. We clearly had the same goal, to give each other a stable future. But since William appeared, everything changed. William was younger, more energetic, and better at pleasing people than I was. I don't know when it started, but the content of my conversations with Ava changed from sharing everything to her giving bits and pieces to William. At first, I was angry and jealous. But after several quarrels with Ava, looking at her with different expressions, and her constant complaints that I was making a big deal out of nothing, I realized her heart was no longer with me. It wasn't so much William's presence that bothered me, but Ava's careless attitude that chilled me to the bone. No matter what reasons I used to try to keep her, as soon as William said a word, she would rush to him regardless of the circumstances. She had given all the love she once had for me to William. For someone who had accompanied her for 7 years, she was nothing but cold and complaining toward me. Yet despite all this, I still proposed to her. I thought that after marriage, she would gradually settle down. But those wedding photos of her with another man tore off the last fig leaf of our relationship. Looking at the night view outside the window, I suddenly felt relieved. They say relationships go through a 7-year cycle, and any connection will feel tedious after a long period of monotony. Perhaps my fate with Ava had come to an end. The next morning, I went to the company to process my resignation. To be honest, it was just a formality. In this company, my authority had long been emptied. So when the HR director received my resignation application, she approved it without even asking question. Afterward, she called me hypocritically, "What a pity, General Manager James. We were looking forward to eating your and General Manager Ava's wedding candy." Listening to her sarcastic tone, I felt no ripple in my heart and smiled as I replied, "Don't worry, you'll get to eat it soon." Before I could leave the company, Ava called, "James, enough is enough. I rejected your resignation application. You should stop now, or I'll make sure you get nothing and get kicked out of Ava Group." I scoffed coldly. After 7 years of dating, did she really think I was a gold digger who could be manipulated by money? Do as you please, I don't care. After speaking, I blocked and deleted her number. The world was instantly peaceful. I submitted my resignation again, and this time Ava approved it quickly. Holding the resignation letter, I left the company without looking back. That night, I slept exceptionally peacefully. No need to worry about whether Ava was unwell after socializing or her mood or the company's affairs, large and small. Early in the morning, I was awakened by a rapid ringing. Answering the phone, Ava's angry accusations came through the receiver. "James, what? It's wrong with you. You're responsible for the project signing today. You'd better be on time." Shaking my head, I woke up fully and held the phone away with impatience. After she finally finished scolding, I said slowly, "General Manager Ava, you really have short memory. If I remember correctly, I resigned yesterday, and you approved it. So what does the project you mentioned have to do with me? James. Ava's voice rose sharply, full of anger and warning. I warn you, don't force me to use measures. Although I approved your resignation, the handover procedures aren't complete. If you don't come, I have the right to sue you directly. I refused to be pressured and replied coldly. Don't try to intimidate me. If you had read my resignation application carefully, you wouldn't be wasting your breath here. With that, I hung up. I just didn't expect to meet Ava again so soon. After learning I had resigned, several former partner companies extended olive branches, and even a company's boss personally invited me to dinner. I couldn't refuse, so I went. The boss was generous and booked a high-end hotel. But as soon as I arrived at the entrance, I saw many old acquaintances from my previous company in the lobby. I realized the hotel the boss had booked was one under Ava Group. And as expected, Ava's so-called project signing was also taking place here. Just as I hesitated whether to enter, William appeared out of nowhere. Seeing me, he sneered, dropping his usual cowardice, and arrogantly blocked my path. Aren't you that loser? Weren't you shouting loudly before? What's scared now? I gave him a cold look and scoffed. What, didn't get beaten enough last time? Looking for another beating? William's face darkened, and he instinctively took a half step back. Seeing the mockery on my face, he said furiously, Don't be proud, James. General Manager Ava is my wife now. You're just a good-for-nothing scumbag. I ignored him, pushed him aside, and entered the hotel. William shouted angrily behind me about calling security. The commotion was so loud that everyone in the lobby looked over. I calmly waved as a greeting, then headed straight upstairs. The boss's reserved private room was on the second floor, but someone didn't want to let me leave easily. James, stop right there. Ava chased after me in high heels, sizing up my clothes with disdain. On such an important day, you show up dressed like this? I'm ashamed even if you're not. She turned to order her assistant to take me to get makeup and change clothes. I pushed the assistant away and looked at her amusedly. Ava, how many times do I have to say it? I've resigned, and we have no relationship left. I'm here to meet someone, not to play house with you. What I wear and whether I'm ashamed is none of your business. Ava was taken aback and almost instinctively sneered. You're meeting someone here? Do you even deserve to? Ava Group's hotel was 5-star, and she probably thought a low-level employee like me wasn't worthy to be here. I didn't bother explaining and turned to go upstairs. But then another voice stopped me. James, long time no see. I turned to see a portly middle-aged man greeting me warmly. It was General Manager Julian of Julian Group, one of today's main characters. The project Ava mentioned was a collaboration with Julian Group. General Manager Julian, long time no see. I stepped forward. After a brief greeting, General Manager Julian suddenly turned to Ava beside him. General Manager Ava, I trust James's character. I can sign the project contract today, but I have one condition. James must be in charge of our project from now on. This statement stunned not only me, but also Ava. I quickly waved my hand. General Manager Julian, this isn't appropriate. I was about to say I had resigned, but Ava suddenly pulled me from behind and smiled at General Manager Julian. Don't worry, General Manager Julian. That's no problem at all. Then she tightly grasped my arm. James, you better cooperate with me. Her tone was filled with unyielding warning. I scoffed and directly shook off her arm. Under the puzzled gazes of General Manager Julian and everyone present, I spoke loudly. Sorry, I won't participate in or cooperate with this project today. I hereby announce that I submitted my resignation yesterday and have no further relationship with Ava Group, including Miss Ava, who has already registered her marriage. There will be no connection between us in the future. With that, I smiled apologetically at General Manager Julian. Sorry, General Manager Julian, I might not be able to continue cooperating with you. Ava stood completely frozen, seemingly unprepared for me to show no mercy. General Manager Julian also converged his smile, his expression somewhat grim. General Manager Ava, is everything he said true? Ava was momentarily at a loss. Seeing this, William quickly rushed forward and flattered ingratiatingly. General Manager Julian, please don't mind. This guy is just a gold digger. You value Ava Group's strength. Now I'll be fully in charge of this project. General Manager Julian glanced at him, then at Ava, his eyes filled with disdain and mockery. A pretty boy like you thinks he can discuss cooperation with me? General Manager Ava, you're truly humorous. General Manager Julian led his team away in a grand procession. Before leaving, he took my hand and said that if I looked for a job, I must consider his company first. I smiled and nodded in agreement. Once Julian Group's people left, Ava couldn't hold back anymore. She rushed over angrily, raising her hand to slap me. James, you bastard. Do you know how much the company lost because of your disruption? I grabbed her wrist and coldly pushed her away. Ava had been spoiled since childhood and had never suffered such grievances. Her gaze toward me was full of anger and disappointment. I said calmly, I already told you I've resigned. I have no connection with you or your company. Everything today is caused by your blind arrogance. What does it have to do with me? With that, I stopped. Gling with them, I turned to go upstairs. In the private room, I had a pleasant conversation with the person in charge. But considering future cooperation with Ava Group might inevitably involve entanglements with Ava, I ultimately declined the boss's warm invitation to stay. After dinner, I went to the entrance to see the boss off. When I turned around, I found Ava is still sitting in a corner of the lobby. William was crouching beside her, and the two seemed to be arguing about something. I had no interest in finding out. As I was about to leave, Ava suddenly saw me. James, wait. She ran over and grabbed my sleeve, her face full of grievance. James, don't be angry anymore. Come home with me, okay? Weren't we supposed to get married? William followed with an ugly expression. His face paled upon hearing this, and he coughed weakly twice. Ava, I feel so awful. Can you take me to the hospital? Ava's eyes showed hesitation, but finally, she hardened her heart, ignored him, and looked at me expectantly. Stop making trouble. I know I was wrong. William and I were just joking around. William froze, his eyes full of disbelief. I sighed. Why do this, Ava? As someone with a boyfriend, you should watch your words. But Ava acted as if she hadn't heard me, holding my hand and endlessly talking about the past. I suddenly felt irritated and shook off her hand. Have some self-respect. You're the one who took wedding photos with someone else and was about to get married. I blessed you, but now you're pestering me for no reason. What do you want? Not everyone has to live according to your whims. My icy gaze made Ava realize I wasn't joking. Panic flashed in her eyes as she hurriedly explained, No, James, I've always loved you. As long as you're willing, I'll break up with William right away. Her voice choked up, and her eyes were red. This aggrieved look felt unfamiliar to me. There was a time when I'd worry for days if she merely frowned slightly. But now, her appearance only annoyed me. She wasn't heartbroken over my departure. She was just upset about losing a servant who obeyed her every command. Enough, Ava. Stop pestering me. If you really care, look back at your poor, newlywed husband. She remained unmoved, just kept bowing her head to wipe tears and repeating, No, no, my husband can only be you. I know I was wrong. In the future, I didn't want to listen anymore. If she'd said these words before, I might have even handed over my life to her without hesitation. But now, I only felt annoyed. Shaking off her hand, I said coldly, Save your breath and think about how to handle today's breach of contract. Delaying such a large project would definitely impact Ava Group. Ava naturally understood this too. While she was stunned, I turned and walked away. I still underestimated Ava's persistence. Somehow, she found out where I was staying and directly blocked me downstairs. I wanted to ignore her, but as soon as she saw me, she ran over and tried to hug me. I coldly stepped aside. Miss Ava, what do you want now? As growing impatient, Ava looked up into my eyes and said sincerely, I thought it through. My dad will take care of the company, so I don't need to worry. You're the most important person to me. I didn't speak, or rather, I didn't know what to say. Taking my silence as acquiescence, she cautiously moved closer and tried to hold my hand. James, I sprained my foot looking for you. I scoffed and looked at the figure behind her. If you're injured, you should see a doctor or complain to your legitimate husband, not me. Upon hearing this, Ava nearly lost her composure. She turned her head, saw William not far behind, feigning injury, and snapped at him impatiently. "I told you not to pester me. Are you done?" Then she turned back to me, her eyes full of tenderness. "James, I've decided to divorce him. I really know I was wrong. Can't you feel my love for you?" I looked at her seriously. Her love for me? Did she even love me? I didn't think so. As the eldest lady of the prestigious Ava family, she'd always been the center of attention. She couldn't stand my repeated rejection, especially since I'd once been like a plaything to her. She was trying to conquer me. But once she succeeded, there was no doubt I would become as tasteless to her as William. "Your husband is still here. Aren't you going to comfort him? After all, you're legally married. Isn't this inappropriate?" I sneered sarcastically. William had come up behind Ava. Upon hearing this, he directly hugged her from behind. "Ava, don't do this. Let's go home, okay?" Ava tried to struggle, but I coldly added fuel to the fire. "Ava, stop pestering me. Since you made your choice, you have to bear the consequences. I don't want to see you again from now on." Perhaps my attitude hurt her pride. The grievance on Ava's face vanished, replaced by deep anger. She turned and threw herself into William's arms, giving me a dark, disdainful look. "James, since you don't appreciate my kindness, don't blame me for being ruthless. Better not come crawling to me in the future." I shook my head with a laugh, too indifferent to care. The news of Ava Group's breach of contract spread like wildfire in the industry, especially the scandal of Ava having an affair with her assistant. Everyone knew about it. Suddenly, countless gossip lovers joined the discussion. As her ex-boyfriend, I was naturally dug up. For a time, my phone was almost flooded with calls from reporters of gossip tabloids. Helpless, I could only go to the telecom office to cancel my original phone number, finally achieving some peace. But a few days later, Ava came again. She blocked me at the entrance of my apartment building with family bodyguards, even threatening that if I didn't go with her, I wouldn't be allowed to leave. Worried her behavior would affect my neighbors, I could only get into her car with a dark expression. "Ava, are you never going to stop?" At my questioning, a flash of irritation crossed Ava's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure. "James, I came because of my father. He's in a hospital and won." Her tone lacked the arrogance of that night, instead carrying a hint of pleading. Too lazy to argue further, I simply leaned back in the car seat and closed my eyes to rest. When we arrived at the hospital, I saw Ava's father in the VIP ward. This once decisive and imposing man now lay pale in bed, looking somewhat lonely. "Dad," Ava called softly. "I brought James." Ava's father opened his eyes. His gaze was sharp. Even a single glance carried a strong, oppressive aura. So this was the demeanor of someone in power. I couldn't help but sigh. Even Ava, who had been arrogant in front of me, now stood with downcast eyes, nervously clutching the hem of her clothes. She always did this small gesture when nervous. In the past, I might have comforted her and told her I was there for her. But now, with so much water under the bridge, I had no need to cater to them. I casually sat on the sofa, crossing my legs. In a cynical tone, I asked, "What does General Manager Ava want from me?" Ava's father's gaze flickered. Then he said flatly, "You must know about Ava Group's recent stock plunge." I smiled, but remained silent. His face darkened. "I called you here because I want you and Ava to marry as soon as possible. This way, the cooperation with Julian Group can proceed, and you can enter our Chin family as you wish. It's a win-win." His voice was weak due to his illness, but the commanding tone and disdain were obvious. Ever since he learned I was dating Ava, he tried every means to stop us. He believed a poor country boy like me was only clinging to Ava for the Chin family's fortune. Even now, his opinion hadn't changed. I laughed. Now I understood Ava Group wasn't as powerful as Julian Group. After offending them, they couldn't make amends. Learning that Julian CEO admired me, they decided to use me. From start to finish, I've been a tool for these powerful people with no human dignity. I made her break up with that William. "As long as you agree, you can marry my daughter immediately." Ava looked at me with tearful eyes, full of expectation. I stared at her and enunciated each word clearly. "Sorry, I've never wanted someone else's cast-off secondhand goods. As soon as the words fell, Ava's father's face darkened, and he slapped her across the face. Shameless wretch. You caused such a mess for a pretty boy. You've been acting arrogantly in front of me. Do you even know your place? I merely smiled at his veiled insults, too lazy to care. Ava covered her red face, looking at me with grievance, as if hoping I'd say something. I stayed silent, watching coldly, then stood with a sneer and left, probably feeling humiliated. Ava's father couldn't pretend anymore. He leaped from the bed, pointing at my back and cursing violently. I ignored him, treating his words like barking dogs. Unexpectedly, Ava actually abandoned her father and chased after me. "What else do you want, Miss Ava?" I asked impatiently. Ava sobbed. "James, I've broken up with William. There's no obstacle between us now. Won't you still marry me?" I didn't speak, just stared at her coldly. My meaning was clear. Ava cried, shaking her head. "No, you weren't like this before. Is there really no chance for us? You know I love you, but I don't love you anymore." I interrupted her. "I don't believe it." Ava grew more agitated. "I don't believe it, James. You used to love me so much. Have you forgotten everything?" She screamed at me hysterically, her crazy appearance making it hard to believe she was the noble, cold general manager. "Ava, everyone knew." I smiled, looking at her with no trace of emotion. "As you said, that was the past. The Ava I loved is already dead." My words hit Ava like a thunderclap, exploding in her mind. She shook her head desperately, trying to plead further, but I'd run out of patience. I didn't want to entangle with her or listen to her regrets. Pushing her aside, I turned and left. Ava collapsed to the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. After that day, we completely lost contact. However, the decline of Ava Group became big news in the media. To pay Julian Group's huge breach of contract, Ava tried to cut costs by laying off employees. Suddenly, panic spread through Ava Group, and negative news flooded the media like a tidal wave. If not for the family's foundation, the company might have collapsed completely. I didn't feel much about it. Ava had brought it all on herself. Meanwhile, General Manager Julian contacted me again, showing great sincerity. I was even tempted, but thinking of the inevitable dealings with the Chin family in the future, I declined. I contacted my university mentor to consult about studying abroad. Upon hearing this, my mentor was very pleased. Back then, when I insisted on giving up opportunities at top companies for Ava, he had felt deeply regretful. Now that he saw me turning back from the precipice, he naturally supported me fully. "James, you're still young and in your prime for striving." Living up to expectations after 2 retakes, I was admitted to a renowned foreign university. To celebrate, my mentor contacted my former classmates to organize a reunion. It was at this gathering that I met Ava again. After just a few months apart, I could barely recognize her. It was Ava who broke the awkward silence first. "Long time no see, James." She smiled at me, but the smile seemed forced no matter how I looked at it. I nodded, not saying much. Her gaze dimmed, and she smiled self-deprecatingly. "I must look ugly now, right?" "Not really, just a bit haggard," I replied truthfully. Perhaps it had been too long since we'd spoken calmly. Her eyes reddened again, her voice filled with grievance and longing. "James, I thought we'd never see each other again." As she spoke, she took a few steps closer, almost pressing against me. Frowning, I stepped back to create distance. "Just talk. You're too close, and people might misunderstand our relationship." My distant actions and words left Ava frozen. The sadness in her eyes was almost tangible. I suddenly felt annoyed. Who was she performing this for? "If there's nothing else, let's go in. The teacher is waiting," I said, brushing past her. When everyone learned I'd been admitted to a prestigious foreign university, my old classmates raised their glasses in celebration. After several rounds, I felt a slight buzz. My mentor, unable to hold his liquor, left first. I knew he was making space for us young people. Once the mentor was gone, everyone relaxed, chatting and drinking freely. Suddenly, the conversation turned to me. I smiled and answered each question, but inevitably someone brought up my relationship with Ava. After all, We'd been the acknowledged golden couple in university. My expression cooled, and I stood up with my glass. When everyone's attention was on me, I said, Miss Ava is a wealthy heiress, someone I can't match. I'm grateful for the encounter that made me a better person. With that, I drained my glass. Sensing the mood, others quickly changed the topic. But there were always those who loved stirring trouble. Pretending to be drunk, they kept urging me to play couple games with Ava. When I put down my glass and refused to engage, Ava seemingly stepped in to help, but the group wouldn't let it go. Ava lowered her head and reluctantly sat beside me. I instinctively stood up, but she staggered as if drunk and hugged me tightly. The crowd immediately cheered. Kiss, kiss. Ava's eyes flickered with a glint, actually leaning in for a kiss. I couldn't bear it anymore and pushed her away forcefully. Have you had enough? My sudden outburst stunned everyone, and the atmosphere grew awkwardly silent. I ignored the crowd staring fixedly at Ava. Others might not know our situation and can be forgiven for fanning the flames. But don't you understand? Ava? She bit her lip, looking pitiful. I ignored her and raised my voice. Ava and I broke up because she's marrying someone else. After a moment of shock, the crowd erupted into heated discussion. I couldn't be bothered to stay, muttering, I'm drunk, I'll head home first, before leaving in a hurry. But Ava chased after me relentlessly. I never thought she'd become so hard to shake off. For a moment, I missed her old aloof demeanor. Stopping, I turned and looked at her coldly. Will you ever stop? Don't you think this behavior is cheap? Ava halted, tears streaming down her face. I know you're going abroad. I just wanted to see you a few more times. I felt nothing. She hadn't cherished me when we were together. Who was she pretending to be loving for now? Besides, a month ago, I'd received photos from William showing they'd reconciled. Why was Ava still pestering me? If you have a lover, a husband, you should respect your boundaries, I said. She shook her head wildly. No, it's over between me and him, she frantically explained. Only then did I learn William's illness had been fake from the start. He'd never been sick. He just wanted Ava's sympathy to steal her from me. Watching her tear-streaked, trembling form, I couldn't muster any sympathy. William was a jerk, but without Ava's tacit consent, his schemes would never have worked. So rather than saying William, I had deceived her. It was more accurate to say she'd been willing to be deceived. But it was all in the past now. What was the point of dwelling on who was right or wrong? Ava let go of me and said, let go of yourself. Can't we let this relationship end with dignity? The next time I saw Ava was on my boarding day. She wore a mask and followed me, thinking I didn't notice. I pretended not to see and walked into the lounge. She sat behind me, and I acted oblivious, waiting quietly with headphones on. Before departure, I received an unexpected call from Ava's father. His tone was unusually polite, even ingratiating. James, come back. I apologize. Can you give my daughter another chance? I know I wronged you before, but now I see your abilities and how much you cared for my daughter. Since you left, she's been depressed every day. As a father, it breaks my heart. I beg you, for old time's sake, give her another chance. I stood up and met Ava's gaze directly. Mr. Chun, general manager. Ava, I won't repeat myself. Listen carefully. From now on, I, the Chin family, and Ava will be strangers. As I walked to the boarding gate, I glanced back involuntarily. Ava had collapsed to the ground, sobbing. I didn't look back again. Only when I sat on the plane, gazing at the blue sky and white clouds outside, did my mind finally calm. I deleted all contact information related to Ava. After the plane landed, looking at the completely unfamiliar environment before me, a trace of unease welled up in my heart, but it was quickly replaced by lofty ambition. Are you James? A young, beautiful girl holding a sign ran toward me. I'm Olivia, here to pick you up. I reached out my hand and smiled. Hello, Olivia. In the days abroad, I threw myself into intense studies again. Those messy thoughts in my heart gradually faded away amid the complex courses. Just when I had almost forgotten the name Ava, one late night, I received a call from across the ocean. Is this Mr. James? This is he. I am Ms. Ava's lawyer. She passed away at 3:10 p.m. Beijing time. Before her death, she instructed me to convey a message to you. Before I could speak, Olivia, who had just finished showering and was drying her hair, walked over. Honey, who's calling so late? I smiled and gave her a reassuring look. Don't worry, it's not important. With that, I hung up the phone decisively before the other person could speak, saying, I don't want to hear it. Olivia snuggled into my arms, her eyes full of tenderness. Honey, come to my house tomorrow. My parents want to meet you. I smiled and gently scraped the tip of her nose. Okay,